Joe Rogan's most famous listener, has given him some free advice in the wake of the controversy over his wildly popular podcast. Former US President Donald Trump has given podcaster Joe Rogan a friendly piece of advice in the wake of the controversy over his Spotify podcast. Mr. Trump defended the controversial personality during a guest appearance on the Full Send podcast, uploaded on Thursday, telling listeners Rogan is not a racist and should stop apologizing. He's a very interesting guy that people like listening to, but people have been hitting him very hard, the former president said. Rogan recently faced immense backlash for spreading COVID misinformation and was forced to apologize after a compilation of him on his podcast repeatedly saying the N-word emerged. "I did tell him one thing, stop apologizing," Trump told the podcast. Asked if Rogan responded, Trump said, "I don't know. I just put the word out." Former US President Donald Trump has given Joe Rogan some words of encouragement. Picture, Chandon Khanna, AFP. A clip resurfaced in February of Rogan using the N-word almost 24 times while hosting his podcast, with him later calling it the most regretful and shameful thing I've ever had to talk about publicly. He claimed the word was only used in context, which he acknowledged was not a valid excuse, and explained their clips were from many years ago. Days later, however, another compilation of 7 damning clips emerged after being compiled by a Twitter user. The new clips had all been pulled from Rogan's work in the past 18 months. Joe Rogan was told by Trump to stop apologizing. Picture, Carmen Mandato, Images North America, AFP. Mr. Trump told Full Send he was unsure whether Rogan had contacted his team about having the former president on his podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. Mr. Trump suggested that Rogan should have moderated one of his presidential debates against current President Joe Biden. He told Full Send Rogan would have done a better job than veteran political journalist Chris Wallace, who moderated the first debate, which turned into a bit of a train wreck. Rogan said during an episode of his podcast in 2020, while hosting retired UFC fighter Tim Kennedy as a guest, that he would like to moderate, but only under certain conditions. "First of all, I'd want no one else in the room. Just the 3 of us. And you would have to stream it live so no one can edit it, and I would want them in there for hours," he said. "If they wanted to do that, they both wanted to come here in Austin, sit down and have a debate, I would 100% do it." Mr. Trump claimed on Thursday Rogan was much more talented than Chris Wallace. "He's a much more talented person than just about all of these moderators," he added. Under pressure from some artists to ditch Rogan from its platform earlier this year, Spotify ultimately stood by him, though it did announce new misinformation policies.